Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM with Armando Nino of Gull Lake Conroe, focusing on Montgomery County area events and places. Get a feel of the Texas spirit at the event, paired with guest and vendor interviews, event coverage, and ticket giveaways, and so much more. Join us Fridays and punch your Texas ticket. For more information on the show, visit irlonestar.com/Texas ticket.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on the Cindy Cochran Show. And I'm Cindy Cochran. Works out good, huh? Yeah. Listen, we are so excited. This is going to be a fun interview and very informative. And so you guys have to listen close. But, of course, we have to thank our sponsor. Wootton Financial Group is the sponsor. Chris Wootton is the head of all that. And he is, he's so wonderful. He stayed with us for... this is his third year with us. He's up 3 times. And so don't be afraid. If you want to sponsor, you want to donate, it's okay. You can do either, or it's fine. And we like to bring the community in and talk about new restaurants opening, new businesses opening, people that are just interesting. Like we had a couple on that they sell treadmills, and I thought they sold tires. I'm trying to think, how do I don't know how I'm going to do this interview. Is treadmills or tires, whatever they sell. And they came on, and we found out that everything that they make is done on a huge scale. It's for movies. It's for, a lot of different areas. They're custom-made treadmills, and they're large. They've been shown in movies, and they've helped capacitate the actors walking all in one line, and so they're so big. And it was so interesting. It's done right here in Montgomery County, and they had that Hollywood connection. It was really cool. So we try and facilitate and have all different people in, and I love authors. I love the people come in and talk about things that they've written, and they want to. They may not have a way to advertise it, and please, come on the show and we'll have a good time. So my guest today is this is so exciting because I love anything like murder mysteries or investigations, detective shows and all that. And this lady is right down my alley. I started talking to her and I felt like, this is a kindred soul because I love this kind of stuff that she's writing. And she is such a prolific writer. For goodness sake, she's now on her 7th book. 7 books. And so I want to introduce you to Kathryn Lane. Thank you, Kathryn, so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited to get to delve into all the stuff that you've done. And you've done Cindy. A lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, there's a lot more to come.
I know it is just so exciting. And how long does it take you to do a book? Like this book right here, Missing in Miami, was this your...
That was my 4th book.
In
the Nikki Garcia series.
Nikki Garcia, and she is someone who investigates, takes on cases, different types of cases, and you go along with her and find all that out. It's so exciting. And so it's always a mystery. And this is Missing in Miami. So who was missing in Miami? What can you tell us? Can you tell us who was missing in Miami in this one?
Yes, there was a young girl that went missing in Miami. And there are so many twists and turns in that particular novel that
yes.
It's really hard for me to bring it down to a 1 or 2 sentence synopsis. But she gets abducted, and because it is a Cuban American that abducts her, he takes her back to Miami. I'm sorry, he takes her back to Havana, Cuba.
Yes.
And he does that because he has a reason for taking this child, because he feels that she's in a terrible situation with her mother and her father. But then I would give too much away of the book if I really told you, all of the players. But then Nikki Garcia, as a private investigator, is hired to find this child. And the trace initially kind of goes to Canada, and she says, no. A Cuban American would never take a child to Canada. I'm going to Havana.
That's great.
And
Now,
the instinct was right.
well, I love that. And it's very trendy right now because, and I don't mean that in a glib way, it's the fact that there's so many kids going missing and being abducted, and we get that during the night because there's an Amber Alert all the time. You start feeling like, is this happening that many times? During the night that they're getting abducted. It's so scary. So
it is scary, and yes, unfortunately there are some cases that are resolved fairly easily. It is a family member, perhaps in a divorce situation, that takes the child. The child is going to be safe, except that they've been abducted.
Well, so that's what you're always you go like, when they say they could be in danger. Like, this is a dangerous situation, so be careful. Don't try to do anything yourself. Just report it to the police so they can find him. And that goes into the Danger in the Coyote Zone. Was your second book?
That was the second book in the Nikki
series.
And that is a child that gets abducted, and she ends up with a group of traffickers in Mexico that are going to bring the kids that they have to the U.S. And the reason I wrote that book is because I really feel very strongly about people knowing how dangerous it really can be for young people, and that unfortunately we live in times when we just parents have to take care of their children. They have to be aware of where they are. And in that case, it started in Mexico, and I was going to end the book in Houston, but quite often the characters themselves tell you where to end the book. So we never really got all the way to Houston before the case was solved.
Before it was solved, I love that, because it's interesting. You've got a lot of power. Everything's in your hands. You're the one that's going to decide how it ends, or beginning, the middle, and the end. But you can take the characters and send them wherever you want to go. They can go into different areas. They can go to different countries and all that. And you have all that power to take them where they want to go in your imagination. That's just, these things are happening, and we know this, it's real. And so I think it just brings awareness to watch your kids. Don't let your kids out of your sight. And I've been known to be at a, we have a event or something here, and the two grandchildren come along, and you think you know exactly where they are, and turn around and they went somewhere else. And the feeling, that is the worst feeling in the whole world. It's like you don't feel your knees anymore. You just feel like, I'm going to collapse right now because I don't know where they are. What has happened? Has something happened to them?
Exactly.
But what's great about Conroe is that as soon as I went and told a police officer, every police officer in the event, in this parade and everything else, knew that there was a child missing, and they shut down everything. They close off all the entrances, everything, until the child is found. It was amazing. So parents that come here, you feel safe with your kids, but you just don't want to let them go. You don't want to take your eyes off of them. Ever. So I'm glad you wrote this. This is this one here, The Danger in the Coyote Zone. So that's got to be great reading. And now Revenge in. Now, see, you say Barcelona. I said Barcelona, sound like a Texan. Say Barcelona correctly.
Barcelona.
Barcelona. Oh, that's beautiful.
But I say it as a Mexican. I don't say it as a Spaniard, even though a lot of my blood is from Spain. My ancestors in Mexico were from Spain. And there they would say Barcelona. they don't pronounce that C or the S sound. It's Barcelona. Whereas Barcelona in Spanish, you can hear
Right,
that C.
everything, yes.
It sounds like an S. And but that book was the most fun to write because I'd been to Barcelona about 16 times because I have relatives and friends there.
And you're
when
doing research.
And then when I started that manuscript, I told my husband, we have to go to Barcelona. And he said, I'm all for it. And we went over there, and I did tons of research. I'd already done online research, but you have to walk a place and feel it and eat the food and talk to the locals to really be able to write about it effectively.
Sure.
Because I want my readers to feel that they're there with Nikki, that they're walking down the street with her, that they are threatened when she's threatened, that they are pursuing the bad guys when she's pursuing them. I really want that to be built into the novel, and the only way to do it is really to visit the location.
Sure.
And so we went twice. You know, we just had to get the food right, and we had to get the wine descriptions right. I mean,
And was that tax deductible? because it had to do with your work. How do they look at that? Do you feel like you can take that off your taxes?
When Bob and I travel to a location, I can write off my airfare
yeah.
and the hotel for myself. I don't. What we do is we take the hotel bill, and even though he's my husband, and even though I would have to have a hotel bill, I split it in half. Because I don't want the IRS to feel that I am taking advantage of the American taxpayer.
That's
so
right.
I do it very much by the book. And, of course, I don't write any food or drink or anything like
Right.
that off. That's
Because
all
you don't
I'm-
want Nikki coming after y'all.
No.
I know. I get it. Now, this is, I didn't know how to pronounce this name. Waking Up in...
Medellin. And to pronounce it the way the people in Medellin do, it's Medellin.
Medellin?
Medellin. Yes. And
There's no G or J or anything in
No,
there.
it's an L,
And
a double
that's
L.
a double L. Oh, okay.
And in Spanish, in regular is Mexican Spanish, it's Medellin, like a Y.
Yama.
But in Colombian Spanish, it's Medellin, as if it were a G, a soft G. And since that's the way they pronounce it, I usually say waking up in Medellin. And it's a city in Colombia, South America. And it is where Pablo Escobar lived. Pablo Escobar, going back a few years, was the biggest drug lord at his time that the world had ever known. And he doesn't figure in the novel. By then, he's already gone. It's a post-Pablo Escobar Medellin. But he's mentioned several times throughout the book because it's the history of Medellin. And I traveled there when I was working for Johnson & Johnson, and I'll tell you, I never left the hotel. I went from the hotel to the office to the restaurant, back to the hotel. At that time, when he was alive.
He was alive then. Oh.
And I was in Medellin, Cindy, when he escaped from the prison that he had built himself.
Oh, my word.
And that was in 1992 or 93. I don't remember exactly. And my company called me and said, "You've got to get out of there." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because Pablo Escobar escaped from his prison." I said, "He's not after me. He's running from the, U.S. soldiers that are down here and from the law enforcement. He's not going to bother me at all." And I went ahead and stayed and finished my job, and I'm still here.
You're so brave. That's so great. That's great. I have someone say, "Get out of there." Okay, now we talked about this one. Okay, those are 4 of the books. Fifth. Now this is your 5th one.
That is a standalone. It's not a Nikki Garcia.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And it is a stolen diary. The protagonist is also a strong little girl, whereas Nikki Garcia is a strong, woman. That's a private investigator and afraid of very little. Jasmine in Stolen Diaries, it starts out with her when she's 4 years old, and it's a coming-of-age mystery. There are a lot of family mysteries. And so as she starts growing up, she starts realizing, something's weird about this family.
And so this was so exciting because I asked Kathryn, is a diary kind of an outdated word? And a lot of girls wouldn't remember or even know about diaries, and they don't keep a diary. They had journals. Journals became popular, and then a lot of people don't even do that anymore. Kathryn said, but she said it's not. What happens is it? Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I just love this. She thinks there's things going on that she hasn't been told, maybe everything that the family has done. And I understand that because I had the same feeling. Like, y'all have got secrets. I know y'all are keeping secrets from us because you don't tell us anything. You don't let us know what's going on. And so she said that her mother dies. Her mother had kept a diary. Her mother dies, and she eventually finds the diary, and starts, and the secrets that she's thinking that they could be are in the diary, but she hasn't discovered them yet. And so that's what's exciting, is that she's going to discover this, and that's what you get to be a part of. And I love how you write and even talk about them, because you do draw us in, and we become part of the family. We become her sister and the other siblings, and they're all wondering what's going on, but she's going to find it out. And so you really are like a detective. You have that feel about you. And yes. So Nancy Drew, was that any of your inspiration?
You know, that is interesting that you should mention Nancy Drew, because I grew up in Mexico, and I grew up with totally different literature. But Nancy Drew is someone my mother had heard about, and one year for Christmas I got like 3 Nancy Drew. And of course at that time I wasn't speaking English, but I could read it and I could write it. And so I did read the Nancy Drews growing up. But actually the inspiration for that book, which I had not mentioned, is that Jasmine, the protagonist, is an autistic child, and she's a high-functioning autistic child that's extremely intelligent. She's a math genius, and then she has a very close relationship with her grandfather, who, of course, encourages everything. You know, she wants to build a spaceship. Oh, sure, let's go buy the materials. And they buy the materials, just ordinary materials, but she does build it. And things like that. She can play the piano, but she is haunted by these family secrets. And it takes her, of course, and she steals her mother's diary, keeps it, cannot find what the family secrets are, and eventually discovers that the secret was there all along. She just hadn't found it.
Now, see, I wondered if her grandfather ever, does he entice her, does he make it seem like there are secrets, or did the grandfather make her feel more suspicious about secrets in the family?
He, of course, has secrets. He's part of all of the secrets.
Ah, okay.
But he just kind of poo-poos it away, and then says, changes the subject. Let's go look at your spaceship, or let's go, visit an archaeological site. And so he takes her interest away from, and he doesn't have to answer these questions. Eventually, then she goes to Princeton, New Jersey, and the grandfather moves with her because she's underage, and that's when things start really becoming more clear to her.
Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome. Now, do you struggle with endings whenever you're coming close to where I've got to have this finished? I've got to finish this. I've got to cut this off. Or do you already know how you're going to begin, middle, and end?
I get a very general idea, Cindy, of what I want to do. I get a spark of inspiration, and then I go off. And whether that is the spark of inspiration, for example, in Revenge in Barcelona, was simply the city itself. I wanted to place something there. So then the story starts forming in my mind, and I sit down at the computer. And sometimes I'll start out, and I don't even know what the next paragraph is going to be. So I am what they call a pantser, fly by the seat of your pants when you're writing?
Huh. That sounds like a lot that happens here with us. Yeah.
And George R.R. Martin, that wrote Game of Thrones, he said that there, instead of pantsers, he called them gardeners, because you just throw a few seeds out there and you watch to see what takes and what doesn't, and that's what the book turns out to be. So you just kind of, the characters lead the way for people that do it this way. Now, I also have an acquaintance, Jeffrey Deaver, and he's a New York Times bestseller, wonderful guy. And he spends 9 months plotting his books out, every single one, 9 months. And he does his research and plots it out, and then it takes him 3 months to finish the book, because he's basically,
he's done.
He's
done
done
it.
it.
Yeah.
But he knows how it's going to begin. He knows what each chapter is going to be, how the length of each chapter. He plots all of that out. Cindy, if I had to do that, I'd cut my wrists. I'd be so bored.
in doing this show, when Richard took over, he listened to how I did the show and all that stuff, and then he introduces a pie chart, and he said, we want to section off, like in 4 different sections of your show, and they're like maybe 10 minutes each, and then we need a break, and then we'll go, and you need to know what you're going to say, and that's, and I'm going, oh, Richard, you got the wrong person to do this, because, and he tried so hard to, didn't you, Richard? Yes, he tried so hard to keep me on that pie chart. I even quit eating pie after that. It was just so, I can't stand to cut the 4th of that out. It was awful. But I certainly understand. He was just trying to, we have to be finished in 55 minutes. And so he just wanted to make sure everything you want to say, you want to get out,
Right.
This is going to be it. So, but, when you're sitting around at a kitchen table, you don't think about that. Things will happen, or you'll trigger something about something I've done. And I even have viewers, and I know one's watching right now, Dennis O'Connor. He'll say, let them talk. You bring them on, they're supposed to talk. Let them talk, and we don't need to hear your stories. Let them talk. I said, okay. And she is so exciting. I know he's loving every minute of this interview. But I do believe that, getting into your head and understanding how you come up with things like that, and this many books and how thick they are, that are you just all on the computer? You type everything out?
I write on the computer, and then sometimes, Cindy, I get a really good thought for a twist in the mystery in the middle of the night. I'll wake up and I'll either have a dream, or I'll be there awake and I'll be thinking about the book, and then suddenly, and I just get up and I go write it down, because if I don't write that down by morning, I might have forgotten about it. So I've learned that.
Smart.
When I first started writing and was writing poetry, I would wake up with a complete poem in my mind, and I would get up and write it. Since I'm not writing poetry anymore, not a little bit, but not
You're getting
much.
more sleep. Oh,
I'm getting more sleep. That's right. That's where I was headed.
Well, I think that I remember is that if you do that, if you don't write it down immediately, it's gone like dreams. Like you dream something, you dream, and you can't go back and think about or understand why I dreamed that and what was all there, and it just drives you crazy because you can't capture that again. And so you're so smart to do that, just to write it down right then.
Well, let me give you an example. I didn't bring the short story anthology, or rather collection, and it's published by Alamo Bay Press out of Austin, Texas, and it's. But one of the stories, Behind the Murals is the name of the little story, and it's just a short story, and it started out as a dream. and it was a little girl that goes to a house, and there are murals painted on the walls of the interior of the house, and she sees that they're sinking into the ground. But she's the only one that sees that the murals are slowly sinking into the foundations of the house. The house is fine. The house is structurally okay. And it is one of my favorite short stories. It is just so fascinating.
Oh.
But then when I was writing poetry, I wrote a poem about a volcano. And it then became and you know, Gertrude Stein said, water a poem and watch it grow into a story. And I found that out after I had already written a short story that came from the poem, and then it became a novella. And it's also in Backyard Volcano that Alamo Bay Press published. And that is so much fun because it's the unconscious that is working. You know, if you get an idea and a dream, it's not that you sat there, you know, and said, okay, I'm going to write about a volcano. No, it's, you know, you start out with a poem or you start out with a dream, and it just grows. And it's fascinating, Cindy. And you have had so many wonderful experiences in your life that you should write a memoir. You really should, Cindy. Oh, absolutely.
Richard, we have that on tape now. Okay. Richard's going, I wish she would so she wouldn't tell these stories over and over again. Every time we have a new guest. Hey, you know, I did. Yeah, it was, you know. But no, that would be fun. If I could ever have the discipline that I know it's got to take to be able to stay with this, you know, and do something like that, because I wanted to paint, and no, you'd paint it, and I'd wanted to do that, and my husband wanted me to do that so bad. He says, I will get you all the stuff you need, and if you'll just sit down and paint. And I went, I don't want to do that. It's too much work. And he says, no, you need to do that. I think it's be really good for you. And I was like 20 years old. There's so many things I want to do instead of sit in a room. But now, of course, I feel like I could do that. I could, you know, and like you say, you want to go to a place that inspires you and where you can really write. And y'all, you know, you go off to a private. Do y'all go to a lake?
We go to Angel Fire, New Mexico.
Angel Fire, yes.
And that's actually 9,500 feet above sea level. It's amazing that I have enough oxygen there to even think, but it is a wonderful place to write because deer come by throughout the day, and the elk go by, and once in a while we'll get a bear, and we get coyotes, and of course we're inside the house when all of this is going on outside, yes. And it just gives me that inspiration of how wonderful nature is and how wonderful life is. And that little bit of a break of seeing some deer in the backyard or an elk, I just go back and I have so many ideas, and they have nothing to do with the elk or the deer.
But it just inspired you.
Yeah.
Could you be in a mall, sitting in a mall watching people go by, and get inspired with that?
Yes.
Yes.
I love watching people.
Oh,
I
bet
love
you do.
watching
Yeah.
people.
You
and
have to,
I
yeah.
get ideas from watching people for sure. And I will hear a conversation sometimes that appears in one of my novels. Again, in one of my short stories, I heard a woman, totally unknown to me, say that her boyfriend, and she was not a young woman particularly, she was probably 60s, and she said, you know, we were in an accident the other day. He turned to me and said, oh, you're so beautiful, and wham, we hit the car in front. And I thought, that makes for a short story.
That's what I mean. It's like in your head, you can take that and just make it whatever you want to make that.
Yes.
And was he getting ready to tell her, you know, you're so beautiful, I just don't I just don't think this is going to work because you're too beautiful. There's so many things that could happen that you can decide which one's going to be the best for you to make this work. And you're not doing it by social. You're not sitting and studying what's going on socially to try and match up or to hop on board or anything like that. You're doing this. They're all great and trending and not even. I mean, I think the trafficking thing is wonderful because I would be going like this, writing it, trying to write, because I'm so mad at that whole thing and how that happens and what the hostage taking and the things like that have gone on, this war with Israel, and you feel like now let me ask you this: have you when you watched the news stories and stuff like that, have they maybe introduced a subject matter?
Well, first of all, the news coming out of the Middle East is so awful that you cannot. News reporting is one thing. Fiction writing is something else. When you're writing fiction, you do want to entertain, and even if it's about human trafficking, as my second Nikki book was, you still want to keep it at a level that is not so awful that
engaging.
It turns the reader off. You want to engage them. You want to entertain them. So the Middle East situation is so tragic. I can't write about that. I really can't. But Coyote Zone, actually, the way I was inspired for that was a news clip, and that was when there were some very big sports events going on in Houston and large conferences, and I heard a very brief clip on the news that large conferences, large music events, and large sports events bring in traffickers that are bringing in, obviously, prostitution.
Right.
Because there is the demand for it during these big events. And I was horrified. Cindy, I was horrified. And I thought, I have to write something about what's going on. And certainly I don't even mention large events like that. I don't mention sports events. I don't mention any of that in the book. It's not a news article that I wrote. It's a novel. It's fictional.
It still
topic.
might scare someone who's thinking like this could happen to you, and this is what you could get into, and what your the consequences could be.
It's bringing about awareness of the topic.
Yes. I mean, it like coming in the back door, but the awareness is there then with that story, and someone goes like, you've seen on TV so many things that happen, and it's all solved in 30 minutes, and that's not how it works. So whenever you're reading something, it's almost more real time than it is if you watch it in a movie.
Well, when you're reading a novel, whoever's novel you're reading, if you feel that you're part of the novel, it will stay with you. When it ends, it's like, oh, I want this to go on a little bit longer. And that's what makes series so popular. And I've been asked to write sequels to Stolen Diary. Stolen Diary came out in January of last year. And I hear from fans that I've never even met, of course, because I have a newsletter that I put out once a month. And they have been clamoring. Now, that also includes a lot of, because the girl is a genius.
Right.
And it includes a lot of things about science. She's very interested in theoretical physics. Well, I'm not a theoretical physician, or physicist, I'm sorry, a theoretical physicist. And at some point, it's okay for me to write about it because I can do the research. But that field is changing so much these days.
So fast.
Yes. The publications that I get on it, I get New Scientist out of London every week, and something that I read 2 months ago, now they found that, oh, it's not that way at all. It turns out that, gravity is such and such instead of the way, and so much is happening that it makes it difficult to write a sequel for that. But I think I will, because it was fascinating to write, and I just loved writing it.
Oh yeah, no, it really is. I love it does have a lot of twists and turns in it, and family members that you can introduce and all that. Do you have a lot of fans that suggest subjects to you and suggest ideas to you?
They, more than anything, they suggest locations. And the one that I'm writing now that takes place in Italy, and it's a Nikki Garcia, that was suggested, well, the location of Rome was suggested to me by someone who's read all of my books. And I have actually met the woman. I don't really know her, but she's a Facebook fan, and she'll respond to my newsletter and so on. And she says, "Oh, please place Nikki in Rome." And I thought, well, I I kind of had planned on placing something in Venice, and Bob and I had gone to Venice in 2019, and I thought, well, I'll start in Venice and, make my way over to Rome.
Go over to Rome and see what's happening there. That is just so fascinating, because you do, you can take Bob along with you. He's so supportive. What a
He's
sweetheart
incredible.
he is. And talking to him, and he's so supportive of you. And he sent me your interview, and I started reading that and scrolling up. I don't do anything on the computer. It's all on the phone. It's ridiculous, I know, but and so it's got, my little world is like this, this big, and so I read it, and I thought, and I have to do like this. I have to zoom in, and then scroll, because you only get to read about this much of it.
Right.
It was, I said, I'd hate to have to read her book like this. So I want to make sure I get this book so I can read it. But I think that he's someone that you feel like he's just the perfect person for you. Like you can just tell it immediately, and that whatever you need to do. And he's sitting out in the lobby, and I told him, I said, "You can come here and talk. We have people." No, I just make her nervous.
And that is true. Supportive as he is, if I said something and he'd go, which he has on occasion, and it's like, then I get all jittery and nervous, and then I can't be myself.
That's what every husband does with the wife. But you're such a strong influence, and I'm sure parents love to have you come and speak in front of their daughters and things like that, so that they can say, this is what you could do. Like, this should inspire you to be who you want to be, because people haven't stopped reading. And I know it's a lot of people go like, well, books are getting outdated, libraries are closing down, and all that because of the technology.
Right.
And I love that you're self-published.
Now I am.
Yeah,
yes.
that is great, because it's more control for you.
It is.
You guys, and you're not having some publisher say, well, you know what we're looking for? We need a little more sex in that. That's just not. It's just not, salacious enough. And you go like, oh dear. If you're under contract, do you have to do that?
Well, when I was under contract and we had to buy our way out because we really wanted to get out from under and it was attorneys, and we had to pay the former publisher that we had and so on. But yes, you're under certain deadlines to get the work to them, and then they can take a year or 2 years to get your work out, because
Yeah, right.
they've got it, and they after it's been edited, they could go for a year or two without. But they usually go for several months to a year before they publish it, because they just have a backlog and they have certain windows when they have to publish.
Mm-hmm.
But it's with Waking Up in Medellin, which was my first full-length novel, I had done fraud auditing for Johnson & Johnson.
How exciting!
And I mentioned that earlier, that I so enjoyed the mystery behind fraud audits,
Of who's doing the fraud.
of
and-
who's doing the fraud and what they're doing. And you would not believe, well, I have never written a single word about actual frauds that I did because they're proprietary. That was Johnson & Johnson. I can't write about those
Right.
things. Not if I don't want to be sued.
Sued.
Anyway.
Sorry.
But it gave me a feel for it. And two things that I wanted to say. One is that some people, because they knew that I had been a fraud auditor, and I wrote the first one in the first person. You know, Nikki says, I did this, I saw that. And we're sitting at dinner with some friends. In fact, we saw them last Sunday. And the husband says, oh, I just finished reading your novel, except I had to skip over one scene. And it's the love scene, and it's like Nikki is going to bed with this guy, and I thought, oh my God, this is Kathryn. It's in the first person. This is Kathryn. I can't read this, and I skipped over it. He said, then I went back and read it because I kept telling myself, no, it's really Nikki. I had just married Bob, and I thought, oh, good grief.
That's hilarious. So that was so nice of him to tell you that. What a gentleman. So but when they're reading Nikki Garcia, they're seeing you because they know you're the author and
Well,
that you're the one that wrote
What
it.
that caused me to do then, and there was a couple of other reasons that I decided to put it into the third person rather than the first person, because I wanted to make sure that, it's like John Grisham, who is an attorney, and he writes about lawyers. I was a former fraud auditor. That my very first book was about a fraud auditor. So, yes, then she became a private investigator, which gave me a lot more liberty and freedom to send her
Sure.
to different countries, to do different cases. It wasn't going to be, just investigating the CEO or president of a company that's defrauding, the company that he works for.
But so now, how long do you have to wait before you? You don't have to work. You can make up a case and talk about that. And Nikki's investigating this fraud that's taking place. They've hired her to do that. You could do that, right?
I could do that since she's a private investigator and she has experience in fraud auditing. I was going to take her as a private investigator and fraud auditor to Hong Kong to do a
Yes.
bank investigation.
Yes.
And I've been in Hong Kong probably about 8 times in my life. And Bob and I had tickets to go, and then COVID happened, and we still haven't made it to Hong Kong. So that idea is on hold.
Oh.
We could probably go now, but our next trip is to follow up on the Venice and
Right.
Italy.
Okay, so number 8 can be Hong
Yeah,
Kong.
so number 8 might be Hong Kong, yes, because I would love to place
That is-
Nikki in that environment. It's so
Sure.
exotic and so different, and I'd
know-
like to.
I found out because I don't travel. So is that on YouTube they have so many videos of someone walking down the streets of these different places, and you really do feel like you're there, with them. And you can go in. They go in different shops and all that. And so I feel like this may be the closest I get to. I think it was Hong Kong was one of them, and they love to do the videos,
Yes.
and they rainy nights and all that, and that's as close as I get. So if there's a novel that's going to take me there as well, and that'll, you might be doing such a great job for the travel agencies as well, because they go like, after reading that book, I've got to go to Barcelona, and so if you have something that you ever want to do, like in Conroe, Texas, or in Willis, or people, I'm from Willis.
I will interview you.
Yes,
We'll reverse the roles.
yeah, we'll reverse the roles and find out.
But you know what I'm most concerned about for authors? Technology is a double-edged sword in many cases, and obviously artificial intelligence is eventually going to be the writer of all books, because artificial intelligence is a lot less expensive for big publishing houses to have than it is to share the profits with
Yeah,
their
but
big
once I know
authors.
that's an AI, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I want to take the French fries that the little robot made and hand me, and the hamburger they made, and I go, because that's the big deal now, is just to go into a place and there's no people there, and it's all done, by pushing the buttons.
I was
don't do
shocked the
that.
first time Bob and I encountered that. We were coming back from Europe, and maybe even from Barcelona, and we arrived at JFK, and we went to get something to eat, and it was all push the button. And I said, "Oh, let's find another restaurant." We walked down a little bit further, and it was the same thing. And I said, "Oh, come on. I can't push a button right now. I just got off a long flight."
Well, it's like, they have those, back in the 40s and the 50s, and you go in and you put the money in, and then the door opens and you get and all that was all done. Well, the people were all behind making all this food, but you knew it was people making the food, and that was better thinking of. I just can't. I don't think I can do it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to adapt to that part.
Well, I don't want to adapt to it either, and I'm certainly not using any AI because when you register for the copyright for a book, if you use AI, you have to state what pages you've used AI on. Well, a lot of authors are using AI, and they're not doing that. They're setting themselves up for some real lawsuits.
That's the plagiarizing. that poor president of Harvard. Luckily, I don't think she did any AI plagiarizing, but it was enough of every other author that she had 50 different plagiarized, issues with her. And I never thought about that for being a.
So instead of 50 Shades of Grey, it's 50 types of 50 ways of plagiarizing.
That's right. That's what plagiarizing would be. Something that it's so funny because I never thought about things I would write about, and I would write a lot of stuff about what was in the Bible and like what my take of it would be today, what would happen today, kind of thing. And it was I thought, I don't have to ask anybody's permission for this, right? I mean, it's okay. Right? I didn't because that's got to be what do you call it when something is in? It's like public domain.
If it's public domain, you're free to use it without any consequences whatsoever.
Well, how's the Bible?
The Bible is probably public domain, but I think that when scholars write, they are going to footnote all of the things that they take from the Bible, and that is what people have to do that are actually taking. So,
right.
So if you are quoting something or you're borrowing something from someone, then you definitely say, either you say there as John Grisham said, or you, as Kathryn Lane said, as Cindy Crawford said, or you footnote it.
Right.
And obviously, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't. But to your point about the president of Harvard, in Angel Fire, we have some friends that are very close friends with the former director of Los Alamos National Labs. And so through our friends, we met him. Very nice guy, very down to earth. You would never guess that he, had ever been director of Los Alamos National Labs. And one evening at a dinner party, I got in, we were talking about AI, and he says, "Well, I sit on 3 boards, and I have the computer write my, I get on ChatGPT, I put in the parameters, and ChatGPT gives me my report that I send it." And I said, "Charlie, aren't you worried about plagiarism?" He says, "Oh, I look it over, I make sure that it's okay." And the last person in the world I would expect to do something like that. So,
Well, Ackerman, the big donor to Harvard, and that withdrew the money,
Yes.
is that he's going to come up with with the app or whatever, I don't know what you would call it, to be able to go in and find all the plagiarized material, and it was going to be like this is what you would use, like the Iron Dome thing. You couldn't even send it out because it would be caught with
Yes.
this app.
well, I have a former, when I first started studying, and I took classes from a professor at Texas A&M, Lowell McWhite, and he's still teaching at Texas A&M, and he's teaching creative writing. He says he can pick up like that if it's something that they've done with AI. And he said some of it is so blatant and some of it is so wrong that you can pick up. And I said, yes, but AI will only get better in the future, so it will become, so that kind
Scary,
of
yeah.
tool is necessary.
Sure. I mean, so he's putting it out for whoever wants to try and come up with this to develop it. He'll back it,
Yeah.
and because it angered him so, he's really enraged about the whole thing. So, and he's got the money to do it. So there you go. You never know. But you are a fascinating woman.
Well, let me tell you,
so
I owe a
amazing.
lot of it to my husband. He does all of the back office. He's the one that, contacted you.
Right.
Thank you very much, Cindy, but let me give credit to
Well,
Rob.
you're right in doing that, but I'm telling you, you had to sit here and have me talk to you and just drain your brain. So I really do appreciate you coming on. And if you have any other friends that are authors or things like that you say you need to call Cindy, and she'll have you come on and talk your head off. So it really is fun to have you and all the things that you've done. You really could come back about 3 or 4 times, we'll be fine. And if we can get Bob in here and talk to Bob and let him, probably gush over you as well.
Well, he has a quick wit about him. I just never know what's going to come out of his mouth.
Funny thing, that's exactly how I said about my husband. No, he says about me. He doesn't know what's going to come out of my mouth. But thank you very much. We're through. We're through. But I have to always thank my sponsor, Chris Wootton and the Wootton Financial Group. And as soon as this is over, you'll hear from Chris. He's going to talk. But also, we always want to thank and appreciate our first responders and our law enforcement, our military, teachers, parents, all of you are first responders. You're the first one there to respond to the kids or whatever. But thank you so much for all that you do, and you're so brave. You're running to it as we run from it. So thank you for being there. Okay, so this is tomorrow is going to be Brianna Donahoe, and we're going to talk the Houston Texans and Astros. She's the #1 fan, and I got to get her insight to all the behind the scenes. She goes to all the training camps and she's everywhere with them. So we'll be talking sports, and you know how good I am about the sports. And I watched the last quarter of the Texan game, and I think I know it all. So anyway, I will see you tomorrow with Brianna Donahoe, and thank you, Kathryn Lane. And we have her information when you go to is it on YouTube or Facebook? The information with Kathryn Lane, Facebook. Both. Oh, it's both. Oh, excuse me. Richard would both have you both on both of them, of course. Richard, I'm sorry you didn't get to talk very much today. So anyway, okay, but he does that. I know what that means. All right, love you. Call somebody you love.
Every week, people ask the same 2 questions. Are they ready to retire? Will their savings last for their lifetimes? Hi, this is Chris Wootton with Wootton Financial Group. Our firm has been in Montgomery County for decades, but the hopes and dreams of the people we serve never change. We help answer these 2 questions and many more that people have about their uncertain financial future. We have a simple introductory client experience that allows us to get to know the client and includes a few meetings for the client to kick the tires at no charge. We provide a concise, 1-page summary that helps the client get a better handle on which questions are the right questions for them. To learn more about Wootton Financial Group's process in helping their clients to a clearer financial future And to see their contact information, visit Cindy Cochran Show page on irlonestar.com/TCCS. Wootton Financial Group is a proud sponsor of the Cindy Cochran Show. Wootton Financial Group is available by phone at 936-449-5952 or visit them on the web at www.woottonfinancial.com. That's www.woottonfinancial.com.
This program is sponsored by the Wootton Financial Group. It is not the intent of Wootton Financial Group to render or offer personalized investment advice or financial planning advice through this radio program or any related website. Wootton Financial Group's participation in this program is limited to providing general information on financial matters and should not be construed as financial recommendation or investment advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Game Plan Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the state of Texas. Insurance services are offered through Wootton Financial Group, Inc. Game Plan Advisors and Wootton Financial Group, Inc. are affiliated through common ownership, and neither firm is affiliated with The Cindy Cochran Show. No listener should assume that any information presented and or made available on this program serves as the receipt of or a substitute for personalized individual advice from Game Plan Advisors, Wootton Financial Group,